Welcome, listeners, and it's a Friday. Goodness, time has passed this week, and I hope your Friday is going great. And with Black Friday coming up, I wanted to share some horror stories around what workers and people experienced during those crazy periods of extreme customer service. I think companies should issue that out to all employees once they survive the onslaught of customers, like a certificate saying, "Extreme customer service survived," as that very same employee goes home and rocks themselves to sleep. From people being trampled, violence, theft, and customers essentially devolving into beasts for a short period of time, I have some stories from all around the world to share with you. And actually, this educates me more than anything else. Not having a Black Friday per se in Australia, I only hear or see stories on TV or online to keep me in the loop. So, join me for 5 Black Friday stories that share the unpleasant side of great deals and a bucket load of people in a small space. Let's get to it. I was very young when I had my first Black Friday. I remember it like it was yesterday, because it felt like a war zone, giving me a level of PTSD all on its own. If you can imagine everything moving in slow motion, all of it, that was my Black Friday. Although my dad hated Black Fridays, he loved me, and he decided to take me to get a Furby, despite visibly being annoyed. A fucking Furby. I didn't even want one, yet he insisted. I think he may have wanted it for himself, or maybe wanted to check out what else was on sale. Anyway, I went to the mall with him out of sheer morbid curiosity. He pushed and shoved and nudged his way up to the front counter, dragging me behind, and we finally get to the doors. How we even got up there, let alone together, was a miracle. Well, it was a Black Friday miracle. The kind of miracle that in any other situation would be mundane and trivial. In this case, anything positive on a Black Friday is a miracle. My face was smushed against the glass and I could barely breathe. I thought it couldn't get worse. Well, I was wrong. They opened the doors and I got punched in the face by some mother with some shithead little boy younger than me. I'm not sure if she intended to actually punch me, but she did. So that happened. Maybe she did intend to punch me, but she was getting jostled around pretty good too. Perhaps she just felt better if she could just land one on someone. Anyway, as I was starting to get trampled by other people behind me, I hear this little shithead of a kid giving me a derisive laugh. And only a moment later, he too got trampled. It was a massacre. I can still hear his stupid laugh. Then, the worst part of the experience. I was separated from my dad. I laid on the ground like a lion in a wildebeest stampede, waiting to find the weakest one to pounce. Finally, I found him in the Furby aisle. He was pulling some NFL-type Furby stripping skills on some teenager. He said, "You're too old for a Furby, kid." The kid said something back that was pretty clever. "Then what the hell are you doing here?" And shoved it into my dad's nuts and ran away. We got that Furby. We got that fucker. 2 weeks later, when my Furby wouldn't shut the fuck up, my dad ran it over with the van a few times. If my phone was made like a Furby, well, I think they'd have a competitive advantage against the major leading phone makers. The thing refused, didn't want to, die. My dad told me I was never allowed to have a Furby again because he thought it was possessed. And that's my story. Story 2. I think it was around Black Friday 2004, and I was a cart pusher at Walmart. In this particular year, Walmart offered a plasma TV at an extremely low price, and was the hottest deal of the year. A man showed up on the Tuesday before the big sale with a tent, ice coolers, generator, TV, and everything he needed to brave the 3 nights that he was staying over. He continuously talked about being first in line, and how he was going to get the plasma TV, and how he was hosting the next Super Bowl party. So this was going to be the best thing ever. Come around Thursday night, I showed up to my shift, and he was still there in a jolly mood, thankfully. He was about to be able to go home and sleep in his own bed. The news came and he did a short interview and explained what he was waiting for. How he was able to get the time off, he was a truck driver, and was overall excited over the whole ordeal and prided himself for toughing out the cold. The line for the entrance wrapped around the whole front of the door and about another 300 yards or so, past the store with thousands of people waiting to get in. At 5 a.m. the doors opened, and the man goes straight to the plasma TVs to see that they were all gone. What happened? The garden center at the Walmart opened up about 10 seconds before the front doors, and those that came the night before scooped up on all the 15 plasma TVs. This guy, who had been there since Tuesday afternoon, was dumbfounded and argued with management, but was stonewalled and told there was nothing that can be done. That guy's Thanksgiving was a bust for sure. Story number 3. I used to be a retail manager. One evening during the Christmas rush at the box retail store I worked at, one of my cashiers, she was awesome, called me over. This lady had her dad's credit card and about $1,000 of merchandise. We were one of those book, music, movie places, so she had a lot of shit. The cashier refused to sell it due to her using someone else's credit card, per normal procedure. The woman got defiant, and the crux of her argument was this: she had power of attorney over her father. He was quite ill, so she had the right to use his credit card to buy Christmas presents. I refused the sale. Hell no. Funny thing was that I was going through the same thing with my grandfather, so I knew about power of attorney, and our attorney jokingly, but wanted us to all know as well, said we couldn't go shopping for personal uses with the POA. I didn't care either way. I just wanted to make sure my grandfather's last months were as worry-free as possible. I could care less about the money. But I digress. This woman would not back down. Busy-ass Friday night, lines longer and longer, she thought she could yell me down, weight me down. I would not budge. She got pissed, left, then brought her ill father back about an hour later and got pretty uppity with me. I felt bad for the guy. He was not doing well and I apologized to him but explained the situation, and he was cool with it. I felt bad for the cashier. She was scared she was in trouble for causing it. I hated retail. Story number 4. It was my second year at Target, and I happened to be in a sling for shoulder surgery. I needed the money, so I continued to work through the holidays with really only one arm to use. On Black Friday I came in and automatically I was pretty much second in charge in my area, just due to the fact that everyone around me was a new person. Nobody had any idea of what was going on. My manager left for a 15-minute break. You think in 15 minutes what could go wrong? Well, it went wrong. I was working on packing out toys, and one of my coworkers comes up to me saying she has a situation she doesn't know how to handle. A black lady was quite angry that there were no black Barbies on the shelf, only white ones. I was completely understanding of the problem. I just told the lady that a lot of toys were gone and we were working to get them out. Nope. She needed that Barbie now. I told her just to have patience and we will work on it. But again, nope. Apparently, I was a racist. Yeah. She was screaming at me that I was a racist and that the store was full of racists. I had to get some other manager to help me. This lady now doesn't care about the Barbie, just that I'm a racist. Eventually, my store manager has to come over and personally go sift through the boxes in the back for the Barbie. Well, of course, there were no black Barbies. The lady screamed at me some more, told me she was going to write to the corporates, like they care, about me. My employees got a kick out of it, but I didn't. I was really upset over the whole situation. I like to see myself as an open-minded person. That's when I realized dealing with the public sucked. Our last story for today is number 5. I was working at one of the top-selling Walmarts for my region. For the first and biggest sale of the night, there were multiple pallets, about 7 feet tall, of super discounted big items scattered all around the store, but there was a considerable amount of them in the garden center, where I was told to go watch. The pallets were spaced out in a manner that formed a large squared off area where the sale would be. a kind of sales line that had rows and rows of assembled bikes behind it that weren't on sale. Something to get in the way of customers so they'd be more inclined to stay within the sales line and keep the crowd somewhat contained. I'm a big guy, 6'1", and not fat but definitely not skinny, and was told I was basically crowd control, plus waiting for the start of the sale to cut the shrink wrap off of some of the bigger sale items like Jeeps. I had it planned out. I was going to cut straight from the bottom up, then move on to the next pallet and let the customers fight to the death over the merchandise, while I tried to escape. About 30 minutes before the sale started, I got to talking with the people around me. It was worth mentioning that it was seriously packed by then, and I really couldn't have moved from my spot if I wanted. Think overpacked Japanese train car with people getting shoved in so the doors could close. So I'm talking with these people, and me being a broke-ass Walmart employee that I was, found a lot of common ground with the bargain shoppers that had to do their Xmas shopping on that morning because they couldn't pay full price for the items they wanted that night, much less full price on any other gifts. A lot of them said that the 3 to 4 big buys they were making that night were going to be the only presents for their house that year. We had a poor person bonding thing going on. Anyway, they're getting all buddy-buddy with me and we're joking around. Then my manager yells out the 5-minute mark and it starts quieting down. They all change. From my broke-ass brethren to soul-staring demon-eyed parents muttering things to me like, "Hey, we'll make a wall in front of you and you can start cutting the wrap early," and "Help me be the awesome mum this year and cut the wrap enough for me to sneak a Jeep real fast." I didn't do any early cutting because I didn't want to cause a domino effect of rabid customers getting an early start. 3 minutes pass, not nearly as much talking. 1 minute, and everyone is staring at my fellow employees and myself waiting for us to cut the shrink wrap off the pallets. My manager yells to cut the shrink wrap, and shit got more real than anything I'd experienced up to that point in my life. I've told this story to friends before, but I don't think I've ever used enough detail to get across to them the real chaos that was taking place. The true nature of these thrifty backwoods hillbillies came out. Cut up from the bottom and glanced up to see the shrink wrap on the top half of the pallet being shredded by crazed customers, and Jeeps flying off the pallet. I cut just a little more before the wrap fell. Most of the top half had already been ripped open by the pile of customers that I will be referring to as the Horde from here on out. People were going insane. If someone was short but not fast enough, they were fucked. The Horde was clawing over one another in a very zombie-esque style, not caring who was under them as they pulled the bulky Jeep boxes down and tried to get away with their spoils of war. Some were trying to yank the merchandise out of the hands of the Hordelings. There was so much yelling that you couldn't really make out words, just frantic voices. Despite being a cool fall night, the air was hot and humid. Again, being short would have been a serious disadvantage, being that your line of sight was about as far as the person in front of you unless you could see over their head. It was harder to breathe, much less move, without having to shove your way through any direction you wanted to go, including me. It was as if I'd been encased by a ball of sweaty, angry rednecks intent on getting their deals. A truly horrible place to be, and the only way I could escape was if I dropped the customer courtesy. I was still half crouched and decided it was time to move on to another pallet, if there were still any left standing unwrapped. I don't know why I hadn't said fuck it and dipped out at this point, but damn it, I was going to cut the rest of my pallets open. I start to shove upwards, and the second I stand up straight to try and leave, I'm hit by a Jeep box square to the face. I let out a fairly loud "God, fuck!" but there was only the same hectic screaming that had been present since the Horde started its rampage. I started to push my way through to one of the few pallets I saw still standing, but it wasn't exactly a regular old walk through the garden center. As I moved, I saw the madness wasn't just confined to my first pallet. There were piles of Hordelets around every pallet. I saw a single manager standing in between a herd of Hordenites by the doors, not saying a word, looking over at me with those sad, dead inside eyes you see on a person that has been in retail for too long. As if he could pull out a .45 and end it all right there. I could only spot 1 or 2 more of my co-workers, neither of which were one of my best friends, Jimmy, that was working that area with me. This worried me because Jimmy was very beta at the time. and the horde was unforgiving. But he would have to wait. I was still on my mission to get to the last pallet standing. After going full-on bulldozer and ramming my way through the Hordians, I finally get to the pallet that turned out to be made up of Razor scooters in long, thin boxes. As I neared it, I saw to my utter shock and surprise that even though the top was still wrapped, the bottom of the pallet looked like a professional game of Jenga. Apparently, at some point, the horde had started a big enough hole in the lower half of the pallet and began emptying it out from the bottom up, and it was ready to fall. I pulled out my box cutter, and from the top this time, quickly sliced down a few feet at a time while pushing armfuls of scooters back behind the sales line so that they would fall onto an area that was less likely to have customers. After having random Hordarians attempting to push through me to get scooters, I gave a push or two more on the top of the pallet and left it alone, seeing as there was enough on the top to keep it from collapsing on a kid or something horrific like that. It was time to get the hell out of Dodge. I bulldozed my way to the less packed area and went into lifeguard mode, standing in one place and keeping an eye out for flat-out fistfights and lost kids. The rest of the night was stressful, but not anywhere near as hellish as the first 10 minutes of the starting cell. Yes, most of this story took place in the course of 10 minutes. Also, I never found out what happened to Jimmy that made him disappear during the chaos, but I saw him walking around later. So, he did survive. And that is our final story. I hope you enjoyed today's Black Friday stories, and I hope nothing like this ever befalls you. I can only imagine how crazy people can get in those times. And also, I'm going to try and include some Let's Not Meet stories in the upcoming weeks. If you have any suggestions of some Let's Not Meet stories that you want to have heard, let me know. And recently, I was asked about where else you could listen to this channel. And I thought I'd share this here because a lot of listeners may have family and friends who don't listen to podcasts. The other places you can find me are in the episode notes listed, but I'll outline them here. iTunes or Apple Media Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, Vidme, Overcast, and also YouTube. If you search for Stories, Fables, Ghostly Tales in Google, with or without a story name, you'll find me there as well. Lastly, if you have any requests, whether it be creepypasta, no sleep, or a specific type of SCP, email me or contact me on SoundCloud. They are the best ways to get hold of me. For example, next week, I'll be hopefully tackling, as I mentioned, Let's Not Meet stories, but also Black-Eyed Kid stories, based on a request by one of my YouTube fans. So we'll see how we go. And thank you all, of course, for listening. And for any of you listeners going on shopping on Black Friday, please be safe out there. And perhaps bring some armor, or, I don't know, a shield or something. And on that crazy note, it's that time. This is the place where stories live, and you telltellers come to listen. Enjoy your day or night, and join me every weekday for our creepy tradition. And as always, till next time.